Okay. So I mean, if you haven't really noticed lately, I've been really grinding out these Mythbuster videos. And I mean, every brand new episode, you guys literally smash the like button. It does way better than I ever expect. So I mean, why would I let you guys down and stop doing this series? So I mean, of course, if you do have a myth you want me to test in the next episode, just leave it down in the comments below. Just literally comment anything. Anything usually just sparks at least some sort of idea for me to do for a myth. So just by leaving a comment down below of like maybe just a random weapon in Fortnite, it might help me spark an idea or even others for some unique myths. Also, I'm gonna plug my Twitter real quick. I'm trying to hit 10k on it, so when we do hit 10k followers, I'll do a Twitter giveaway for only Twitter followers to win. Anyways, let's begin today's episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. Jumping straight into the first myth is, are the creative bots or AIs able to recognize and do damage while you are a snowman? To do this, I made a brand new creative world just for myths only, and I spawned in an AI as well as a sneaky snowman grenade. After placing down the AIs and putting the grenades into a llama, I started up a match. I threw down a sneaky snowman, and as you can see, I hid behind it, and it seemed as if the AI, it didn't really have good aim to break the snowman. I then tested this out with myself as the sneaky snowman, and as you can see, this thing, the AI is literally like missing every single shot. I'm not really sure if it's trying to act as if the hitbox is bigger because the snowman is equipped to me or what, but it seemed like it took a very long time for it to at least destroy the snowman, and then right after, it started laser beaming me. I did have the AI settings up to some fairly good aim, so I don't know why they were missing so many shots. They seem like total bots, if you get what I mean. The next myth is, what happens if you float up to a supply drop with balloons and the supply drop lands on you in mid-air? Will it stop and float in place? After getting some balloons in a regular playground match, I found a supply drop and I just equipped it about 3 balloons, so I'll float up fairly quick. After a nice little float up to the supply drop, surprisingly when the supply drop did land on top of my character, it literally floated in mid-air and I did have the option to search it. I was actually pretty surprised by this. I did not expect for you to be able to search it. I thought maybe the supply drop would kind of just go straight through your player or even just push you out to the side. I then tested this one more time to see what would happen if I do stop the supply drop in mid-air, then move out of the way to see if it'll just stay floating in place or if it would continue dropping down. After I stopped it in mid-air, I released both of my balloons and I sadly fell to my death. But as you can see, when I did respawn and I flew back down to the supply drop, you could see that it did continue its motion in moving, and after all, it ended up landing a couple seconds later. Overall, this was a pretty unique myth and something I honestly didn't know. The next myth is, how many walls can you see through with the thermal AR? Now, funny enough, I actually thought that AIs were going to be seen through with a thermal AR. I thought you would still see like the body heat from them. But further testing that wasn't the case, so it kind of screwed up this whole entire test. I set up a little wall going all the way up to 11 walls, just testing one by one to see what exactly will work, how many walls you could go through. But after testing out with the AIs and not being able to see them, I had to redo it. This time I placed down loot llamas in place for the AIs, and as you can see, you could still see the heat or whatever that the thermal ARs would produce as if there was a player. Through one single metal wall, you were not able to see any of the loot llama at all. As you can see, I go to the side, then I go back and forth, and you cannot see it through whatsoever. Now, different items like brick walls and wood walls, they do have little gaps in between. So for this case, I put a wood wall down, and as you can see, you could actually see the loot llama through the little gaps. I then proceeded to place down multiple walls all the way up to about 11 to 12 wood walls. And if you do get in the right position, you will see a little mark of the llama, the orange heat glow, and I guess you could go through as many walls as possible. The next myth is, can you rocket ride while riding a hoverboard? For me at least, it's pretty difficult for me to rocket ride, even just a player. I always tend to mistime it and either kill myself or just destroy the platform and totally kill both me and my teammate. When I tested this out in game, I got my second account on the hoverboard and it was up on a platform a little bit higher than me. That way I could easily shoot the rocket beneath it and do no damage to each one of us. After I tested out multiple times, it seemed fairly impossible to actually get the hoverboard to land on the rocket and continue flying, and most of the time it seemed like it was just totally going straight through the hoverboard. I tested to see if the rockets would actually go through the hoverboard itself while he was just floating in mid-air, and as you can tell, the rockets literally do not do anything. The hitbox at least would pick it up if it was close enough, but when it does get close enough, it just acts as if it's a wall and totally explodes. I further tested this to see maybe if I could clip it on like the far edge, but when I did get to the barrier of the hitbox, you can tell that it just totally exploded, and sadly you can't rocket ride. The next myth is, what happens when you land on a launch pad while riding a hoverboard? This was a highly requested myth. This myth literally got maybe like 800, 900 likes on my previous video, or the video that I saw this comment on. So I mean, I had to test it, I guess. In game, I set up a launch pad on the ground and then a little ramp for me to at least land on the top of it, because I feel like it would be difficult to kind of like ride up on top of the launch pad itself. After missing the launch pad, I just drove straight up onto it, and as you can tell, my character did end up flying into the sky as if it was just a regular jump onto the launch pad if you didn't even have a hoverboard on your feet. Now what surprised me though is after testing this a few times, I removed the wall and I actually drove up to the launch pad once again, just regular on the hoverboard, and it didn't do the same animation as it was before. I actually launched into the air with the hoverboard still connected to my feet. I was gaining up tons of points, and I was pretty shocked by this because I ended up testing it multiple more times and I was unable to do it. So I don't really know what caused it, but at least we know it's possible. Jumping into the next myth is, can you throw grenades through the spawn island's invisible barrier? If you've ever tried to build back to the spawn island, you know that there is an invisible barrier that you will end up hitting, which kind of blocks you from going from island to island in just a regular game. I honestly don't really see the point in this because I mean the storm ends up covering the island no matter what anyways, but further testing this, I got a few grenades. I got a regular grenade and a stick of dynamite, and when I did throw it, it did go straight through the barrier and exploded just like regular. When I read this, I actually thought it was going to hit the invisible barrier and bounce back and probably end up killing me, but further testing, you could see that it acts just regular, normal. It literally has no change whatsoever. So I wanted to see if it would do at least some sort of damage to the buildings on the spawn island. I had this rocket launcher and I put it to the perfect height so it would hit this little shed on the corner, and as you could tell, they still do damage on the spawn island to all of the structures. With this being pretty interesting, sadly you can't really take any of this info and use it against other players in a regular game unless you guys go to the spawn island. The next myth is, what happens when an AI lands on top of a rift? Now to do this in game, I built up a little ledge for all of the AIs to stand on top of, hoping that when I would break the floor beneath them, they would fall down just like a regular player and just kind of stand there. Now further testing this in game, that sadly was not really the case. When I would break the floor, even just by shooting it down right beneath them or just in a regular domino effect break, the AIs would just basically despawn in mid-air, making it impossible for them to actually fall into a rift itself. So this time I actually had a rift to go, and I basically ran and jumped on top of the AI and just even right next to them. I basically hugged them, used the rift to go, and as you can tell, it literally had no effect on them whatsoever. I mean, the AIs were fully in range for them to at least have the effect if it was a regular player, but I guess it literally doesn't do anything. Jumping into the last myth is, what happens when you run into a player while you're riding on a hoverboard? With all other vehicles like the plane, the golf cart, and even the quad crusher, when you run into players, it usually launches them straight up into the air, fairly high, sometimes where they take a lot of damage or even die. Sadly, this wasn't the case with the hoverboard. When I would run into my second account with the hoverboard, you could tell that he literally just is like a brick wall. He does not move whatsoever. I ended up changing teams to see maybe if that had an effect, but sadly it literally did not change at all. The character was still unable to be moved. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you have enjoyed. If you didn't make it this far, leave a quick comment down below saying end, and I'll try and recognize all of you guys for being awesome and watching the whole video. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time.